First things first, when I start editing my whites, I go into saturation in the HSL panel and I turn down that yellow. And then I start playing with basically the lighting. The photograph here is pretty well exposed. All I'm doing now is just creating a little bit of depth by lightening the whites and adding some contrast. Another thing to do is I always click transform, and just in case like there's some wonky kind of distortion going on. And then I enable profile corrections, which makes the image overall very brighter. And it removes those lens vignetting. And then we're going to go ahead and do some spot correcting. So in Lightroom, it wants to do whatever it thinks that the correct texture is, but you can drag, as you just saw, and move it. Now we're going to darken lashes. So auto mask is on. And I'm going to go ahead and just target his lashes. I'm going to darken them by bringing down the exposure. You can do this however you want. You can also use dehaze or clarity. I'm using both clarity and sharpening to add a little bit more depth. So now with a new brush, I'm going to use one of the presets that comes in the new updated Lightroom. So I'm going to use exposure, and I'm going to leave everything blank except for exposure and shadows. We can do the whites, but I don't feel like doing the whites. And then saturation all the way down, and then make sure auto mask, density, and all of this. So the flow is basically your opacity. I like to leave it kind of low, and then right now I'm just kind of adding more dehaze so it can get hazier, and you guys will see what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and brush that on here. If you want, you can go in and make that flow a lot harder. This is just because I like to be able to control it and not see such a stark difference in the beginning, and then I kind of gradually bring it up slowly. And then with the auto mask, it's only going to target things within that kind of spectrum of the hue or the color. So it just depends on where you've started off. And here I'm just zooming in. You can kind of choose where you want to zoom into. And then this is kind of brightening it some more. So all I'm doing is I'm brushing this all over where I see white, and it takes away that cream cast and any other kind of color spill that I see, basically. And it will leave a little bit of color residue, specifically with skin tones, because it's not the same, it's not within the same tonal range, basically. So it's not going to try to target a bright orange when it's yellow. So now if you go in and you click it like I just did, it's now going to add that to that spectrum of, hey, we should change, you know, this. It's okay. The user is telling us it's okay. So Lightroom is great in that aspect versus if I were to do this in Photoshop, it would be completely manual, and it doesn't really have anything that's going to sense anything. And then you do have the eraser tool there, so in case you do touch like baby skin or something, then you can go back and you can see where you're at. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this portion up just because I'm literally just taking forever to target things. So I went ahead and I'm going to show you guys where we used all that brush. And if you just kind of hover over your pin, and by pin I mean these, so see how there's a little dot right there? That's what it's going to show you. And then it's going to show you mask overlay, and that's how you can see kind of where you're, if you're in Photoshop, you guys know this, like it's just a layer mask, but you can see where you're kind of working on, and that way, in case you're kind of like, did I touch it there? Did I not touch it there? Specifically, I use this for skin. So if I feel like maybe the skin got touched and I'm not noticing it because I'm looking at the screen for so long, then, you know, I use this and I see like, oh, okay, yeah, his skin is probably pure white right there where it shouldn't be. So I just use this as a guideline, and yeah, I go back and touch where I feel like it needs to be touched. So now we click done and we're out of the brush mode. And then this is where we are right now. So that's before and after. That's a pretty big difference, my style wise, since I edit pure whites. So we're getting closer to the final product that we want. So now I'm going to go ahead and tweak these some more. You can go back and edit, what we just did. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of clicking on the brush or the brush layer that we just created, and I'm making it a little bit more airy. And then just be careful not to overdo it. So dehaze is great for this, but in reality, it can also make things pure white. And then clarity, what it does is it adds like kind of a soft edge to everything. So it makes it a little airier. So all these settings serve their own purpose. The blacks, they're going to lighten the blacks. The shadows are going to lighten the shadows. And it just depends on your style and how you want things to look. For me right now, it looks a little bright, but it also looks like a little dull. So I'm just trying to add more life into the whites. So by doing that, I'm kind of creating the same effect that his skin does without making the whites look like, wow, that's really, really, really white. So we're going to go back down here into HSL and we're going to turn up the oranges just a little bit because there's a lot of oranges going on. Obviously the carrot and the baby's skin. So I'm just turning up the orange and the red, and then sometimes I do bring down the yellows just because yellow tends to be a paler color, and just to keep that nice depth without it going overboard, then I kind of bring it down. For the greens, since the greens are on the stems, I kind of wanted them to be a little bit deeper. You don't have to do this. Again, all of this is kind of now playing into take it as you will, like an artist rendition of. But these are basically the core things that I do. I just now am tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. The blue primary down here in what is the camera calibration, it just kind of pops all those skin tones. It makes them a little bit more lively without oversaturating. So that's what I did there. And then now we're just cropping. And I like to kind of keep it at a tight crop. So I'll bring it up right there. And from here, I feel pretty happy with it. I hope you guys learned something new, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!